Welcome to Leaders HQ, where leaders come for inspiration to build themselves, their team, and the community. We're developing a community, so please tell us about yourself in the comments. Today, we're introducing our new leader, Sarah. She's just stepped into a leadership role for her first big community project, a donation drive to help local families. The objective is simple on paper: collect supplies, sort them, and distribute them. But as the event begins, things start falling apart. Volunteers show up late, unsure of their tasks. Supplies are scattered, unorganized, and nowhere near enough to meet the need. Families waiting for help grow restless and frustrated. Someone asks, "What's the plan?" And Sarah freezes, unsure of how to fix the chaos. Let me introduce Monty's own terminology for leadership: the mud event. This is what we call a mud event. It's a term for those messy, challenging moments in leadership when things don't go as planned. Literally, it's chaos in the details, unmet deadlines, miscommunications, and unexpected hurdles. Contextually, it's something even bigger: that overwhelming feeling of being stuck, wading through uncertainty, and trying to lead when everything feels out of control. Mud events are common. Every leader, nonprofit organizers, corporate managers, political campaigners, faces them, often when stepping into new roles or ambitious projects. A leader needs to be willing to get into the mud, wallow in the mud, get good at the mud, and then become an expert on the mud. And then they work with their team to make sure that the team is now good in the mud. If you're feeling frustrated, you're not alone. Sarah's feelings of uncertainty and overwhelm are the same as many new leaders navigating their first mud event. It's easy to feel like you're failing or out of your depth when chaos strikes. You might wonder if leadership is even the right path for you. But here's something to remember: mud events don't mean you're failing, they mean you're learning. Every leader has stood where Sarah is now, frustrated but determined. These moments don't define your potential, they're shaping your growth. Some of the main reasons for a mud event is: 1. The team is untrained. 2. Not sufficient time to complete tasks. And 3. Not enough resources to do the job properly. Mud events are universal. Take nonprofits, for instance, where passionate but untrained volunteers often work with limited resources. Leaders in these settings frequently face the same challenges as Sarah: disorganized systems, unmet expectations, and frustrated teams. The same happens in corporate launches or political campaigns. The difference between a leader who thrives and one who falters lies in their approach. Do they panic and try to control everything? Or do they embrace the mud, roll up their sleeves, and lead through the mess? If you're feeling stuck, know this: leadership in messy, difficult situations is a skill you can improve with time and practice. Start by recognizing the mud event for what it is: an opportunity to clarify chaos, prioritize action, and grow as a leader. Over time, you'll learn how to adapt to unexpected challenges, build stronger systems, and communicate more effectively with your team. The resources to navigate a mud event are within your reach. Focus on achievable wins, small tasks you can tackle now to regain momentum. Look for guidance from leaders who've faced similar struggles, and invest in tools and training to sharpen your skills. Most importantly, give yourself grace. Leadership is a process, and every mud event you navigate brings you closer to mastery. Does this sound like you? Are you facing your own mud event? If so, stick with us, and we'll show you how to turn this challenge into a breakthrough. As we leave Sarah's introduction and delve deeper into leadership challenges, consider the concept of mud events. Like Sarah, many leaders find themselves stuck in chaotic scenarios, unsure where to begin. But what if these moments are less about failure and more about opportunity? In the next scene, we'll unpack the challenges you may be facing, from managing resources to building team morale, and see how these hurdles are often the first step in growing as a leader. Let's explore how recognizing the mud for what it is, a chance to clarify and prioritize, can set the stage for progress. Right now, you might be feeling overwhelmed. Leading through a mud event is no small task, especially if it's your first time. Like Sarah, you're juggling too many moving parts: volunteers, resources, deadlines, and it feels like you're falling short no matter how hard you try. But here's the truth: this is just the starting point of your leadership journey. You're not stuck. There's a way forward, and you have the potential to grow into the kind of leader who can thrive even in challenging, messy situations. The first step is to recognize that leadership isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Start by clarifying the chaos. Take a step back and ask yourself, what's the most immediate issue I can tackle today? Maybe it's organizing your resources, assigning clear tasks to volunteers, or simply having an honest conversation with your team about the challenges. Progress happens one step at a time, and even small wins can create momentum. Step 2 is to lean on the resources around you. Leadership doesn't have to be a solo journey. Look for mentors who've been in your shoes and can offer guidance. Tap into training or workshops that focus on volunteer management or communication skills. Use tools like project management apps or team planning templates to bring order to the chaos. There are countless resources available to help you build systems that work, and it's okay to start small. Step 3 is to focus on growth, not just for yourself, but for your team. Leadership is about building others up, and the more you invest in your team, the stronger they'll become. Take time to encourage them, recognize their efforts, and provide constructive feedback to help them improve. Over time, you'll see your team develop greater confidence and efficiency, and you'll find yourself growing alongside them. Now imagine where you could be 6 months to a year from now. After working diligently to master leadership through messy times, you could develop traits like resilience, adaptability, and clear communication. You'll be someone who can navigate challenges with confidence, inspire your team to stay motivated, and create systems that make future mud events feel manageable. You'll find yourself thriving in situations that once felt overwhelming, and that's because you'll have put in the time to grow. Your team, too, will have transformed. In 3 to 6 months, they could become a cohesive unit, one that trusts you and works together seamlessly. They'll have a clearer understanding of their roles, stronger communication, and greater pride in the work they're doing. And as your team improves, so does the impact on your community. Think about the ripple effect this could have on the community you're serving. When the leader and team become masters of navigating challenges, the results are tangible. Projects are completed efficiently, volunteers feel valued, and the people you're serving see real, positive change. The community regains trust in the work you're doing, and they might even be inspired to get involved themselves, creating a cycle of growth and improvement. So, where do you begin today? First, take time to clarify your priorities. List the top 3 tasks you need to tackle right now to create some order out of the chaos. Second, reach out to someone who can offer advice, whether it's a mentor, a colleague, or even a trusted friend who understands your challenges. And third, commit to learning one new skill or tool this week that will help you lead more effectively, whether it's a time management technique, a communication strategy, or a resource for organizing volunteers. You're capable of so much more than you realize. Leadership in messy times isn't easy, but it's where real growth happens. With time, effort, and the right resources, you can turn this mud event into a breakthrough event that leaves you, your team, and your community stronger than ever. The first step is believing in your ability to grow. Let's get started. Now that we've broken down the chaos and outlined actionable steps for emerging from a mud event, let's see how these strategies play out in the real world. Enter Robert, a leader juggling high expectations and limited resources in his community revitalization campaign. His journey through disorganization and doubt offers a practical blueprint for navigating messy situations. From facing criticism to inspiring his team, Robert's story reveals the transformational power of clarity, collaboration, and communication. This next chapter provides a vivid example of how small, intentional actions can lead to significant breakthroughs. The following scene is our real-world example of real-world leaders with real-world type problems. Robert stands in the middle of the chaos, scattered supplies, frustrated volunteers, and unfinished tasks looming. This wasn't how he envisioned his community revitalization campaign. He had dreams of transformation, of neglected spaces turning into vibrant areas for families and businesses. But now, the vision seems distant. Schedules are unclear, supplies are delayed, and the volunteers, once motivated, are losing confidence in both the campaign and his leadership. On social media, criticism mounts, with images of abandoned trash piles and captions like, "Is this the change we were promised?" This is Robert's mud event, a messy and overwhelming moment that tests the resolve of any leader. The stakes are high. If he can't sort this out, the cost will ripple across everyone involved: his reputation as a leader, the morale of his team, and the trust of the community he's striving to uplift. Yet, as daunting as it feels, this mud event holds the potential to become a pivotal breakthrough event. Robert begins by taking a step back to assess the chaos. First, he accepts that the aggressive deadlines he set, ones that didn't account for his team's capacity or his limited availability, need to be adjusted. He meets with his core team, not to reprimand but to collaborate. Together, they identify the most urgent issues, reorganizing schedules, clarifying volunteer roles, and ensuring that supplies are delivered promptly. Robert starts delegating tasks effectively, trusting his team to handle specific responsibilities, something he hadn't fully embraced before. Next, Robert focuses on communication. He realizes that many of the frustrations stem from a lack of clarity. He sets up daily check-ins to keep his team aligned and introduces a streamlined system for tracking progress. For the volunteers, he creates simple, clear instructions for their roles and makes himself available to answer questions. For the community, Robert begins posting regular updates on social media, acknowledging the setbacks and sharing the steps they're taking to address them. This transparency starts to rebuild trust. Through this process, Robert notices a shift. His team, once overwhelmed, begins to find their rhythm. Volunteers feel more empowered with clear direction, and some who had walked away return, inspired by the renewed focus. Slowly but steadily, progress becomes visible. Cleanup efforts pick up speed, and the areas they've worked on start to reflect the campaign's original vision. Months later, what began as a chaotic mud event becomes a breakthrough event. Robert grows as a leader, learning the value of adaptability, delegation, and clear communication. His team evolves into a cohesive, motivated group capable of tackling future challenges with confidence. The community, initially critical, begins to see the impact of their combined efforts. Neglected spaces are transformed, not just physically but symbolically, as trust and optimism are restored. For Robert, this journey through the mud wasn't easy, but it was necessary. It shaped him into a stronger, more resilient leader. And for anyone watching, the lesson is clear. No matter how messy the mud event, with clarity, collaboration, and perseverance, a breakthrough event is always possible. Robert's transformation illustrates the potential within every mud event. By reassessing priorities, empowering his team, and communicating transparently, he turned a chaotic situation into a breakthrough event. But what about you? What specific tools or mindset shifts can help you replicate Robert's success? In the next scene, we'll provide practical solutions for embracing leadership's messy moments. Drawing from Robert's experience and proven strategies, we'll explore how to turn today's obstacles into tomorrow's achievements. Get ready to discover how small, purposeful steps can set you and your team on a path to lasting success. Robert stood before his team, clipboard in hand, the weight of the past weeks etched into his tired expression. The campaign site was still chaotic, supplies scattered, tasks half-finished. But today felt different. Today, Robert had a plan, and more importantly, he had clarity. Before we jump in, I need to say something, Robert began. His voice carried the steady resolve of someone who had stared at a mess long enough to see a path through it. I've been trying to control everything. I thought leadership meant having all the answers, but I realize now, it's about building trust, creating clarity, and letting others shine in their strengths. A ripple of quiet agreement passed through the group. It wasn't a grand speech, but it was honest. And honesty, Robert was learning, carried its own power. He took a deep breath and began to outline the day's plan. Step 1. Simplify and prioritize. Instead of a sprawling, impossible task list, Robert presented 3 immediate priorities. Clear and sort the supply station. Assign team leads for critical areas, Jamal for logistics, Elena for supply coordination. Schedule consistent, short check-ins to keep communication flowing. As he spoke, Robert could feel his own hesitation creeping in. Would this actually work? Would the team buy into this new direction? But he pushed forward because hesitation wasn't an option now. Step 2. Delegate with trust. Jamal, I trust you to handle logistics today. Keep everyone on task and flag me if you hit a roadblock. Elena, you know the supplies better than anyone. Organize the station and don't hesitate to make calls if something isn't working. Both volunteers nodded, a little surprised but also energized by the responsibility handed to them. Jamal cracked a grin. You got it, Robert. Step 3. Celebrate small wins. As tasks started taking shape, Robert made it a point to notice. When a volunteer finished organizing the supply station, Robert said, "This looks fantastic. You've saved everyone so much time today." When Jamal quickly resolved a scheduling mix-up, Robert gave him a thumbs up across the room. These small moments felt insignificant on their own, but together, they built momentum. The turning point. Midday, Robert noticed something. The energy in the room had shifted. Volunteers moved with purpose. People weren't waiting for instructions. They were solving problems on their own. Jamal's team had reorganized the staging area into something that actually made sense. Elena had the supplies flowing efficiently. And for the first time since the campaign launch, Robert stepped back, not out of resignation, but out of trust. Still, there were pockets of doubt. A handful of volunteers remained distant, skeptical. Robert noticed but chose to focus on the growing wave of progress instead of getting stuck in the shadows of doubt. Robert's inner reflection. That evening, as the team wrapped up, Robert walked through the site alone. The place still wasn't perfect. Trash bags leaned against half-filled bins, and a few tasks remained undone. But the difference was undeniable. He realized something profound. Leadership isn't about fixing everything at once. It's about showing up, owning the mess, and taking small, consistent steps forward. In his mind, Robert reflected, progress isn't about grand transformations overnight. It's about moving forward, one step at a time. Today, we did that, and tomorrow, we'll do it again. Robert's actions today didn't erase every problem. Not every volunteer was convinced, and not every task was finished. But progress was made, and momentum, once started, carries its own strength. In the next scene, we'll step back and unpack the key lessons from Robert's journey, showing how you can apply these strategies in your own leadership challenges. Let's turn this mud event into your breakthrough event. So far, we've really enjoyed some good information and motivation about working with a mud event. Personally, I live for the mud events. The times when the water is murky and I have trouble seeing the future. I've learned that I need to get into the mud, get good at the mud, and then become an expert in the mud. The mud is not where everybody wants to be, but I find that the more time I spend with these difficult situations, the easier the other situations become. Sometimes leaders are hesitant to get into the mud because it's beneath them and messy. The more you do it, the better things become. Let's continue. Every leadership journey starts with a moment of realization, a recognition that things aren't working as they should, but also a belief that change is possible. In Scene 1, we introduce the concept of the mud event, those messy, chaotic moments where leadership feels impossible and uncertainty takes over. But we also discovered something powerful. Mud events aren't failures. They're opportunities for growth. In Scene 2, we tackled the weight of self-doubt, the voice inside every leader that whispers, "You're not enough. You can't fix this." But here's the truth. Leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about showing up, clarifying the chaos, and taking one step forward, no matter how small. Progress begins with the willingness to try. Scene 3 revealed the raw reality of leadership's costs and benefits. Robert faced setbacks, frustrations, and moments where walking away might have felt easier. But he also experienced breakthroughs, moments where clarity emerged, trust was built, and momentum began to carry the team forward. Leadership is rarely glamorous, but it's always meaningful. Then, in Scene 4, we saw the power of small, honest steps. Robert took ownership of his role, delegated with trust, and prioritized clarity over control. The results weren't perfect, but they were real. His team responded, his confidence grew, and progress, tangible, visible progress, started to take shape. That's the essence of growth. Small steps, consistently taken, creating lasting change. But here's the most important takeaway. Robert's story isn't just his story, it's yours too. Whether you're leading a volunteer team, managing a workplace project, or guiding your family through a challenging season, the same principles apply. Leadership isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about showing up, even when the path forward isn't clear. It's about learning, adapting, and growing, not just as a leader, but as a person. So let me ask you, have you been in a difficult and messy mud event? I'm curious to hear more about what your experience is. I would encourage our viewers to take an hour this week to journal about your leadership challenges. Maybe it's reaching out to a mentor for advice. Maybe it's simply sitting down with your team and asking, "How can I support you better?" Whatever it is, take that step. The ripple effect of one small action can change everything. Being in a messy and difficult situation with your team is unbelievably common. You're not alone on this journey. Millions of leaders around the world have stood where you're standing now. They've faced mud events, doubted themselves, and felt the weight of responsibility. But they've also pushed forward, one step, one day, one decision at a time. And because they kept going, they found breakthroughs waiting on the other side. We're building a community of leaders who believe in growth, resilience, and the power of showing up. If this video resonated with you, we'd love for you to be part of our journey. Let us know. What's one leadership challenge you're navigating right now? Telling us in the comments helps us get to know each other and learn from each other. Here's something to leave you with. One of our community members once faced a mud event so overwhelming they nearly gave up. But by showing up daily, taking small steps, and trusting their team, they turned their challenge into a breakthrough event. You can do the same. I'll close with this quote from Theodore Roosevelt. "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood." Theodore Roosevelt, you already have everything you need to take that first step. Now go and lead with courage, clarity, and purpose. Thank you for being part of the Leaders HQ community. We value you, and we can't wait to see the impact you'll create. And yes, we're expecting you to create a really positive impact in your community and with your team. Cheers!